Kevin Avery Photography, an amazing photographer. One of, I think it was either Tracy or one of our OC camera members or committee actually saw one of his displays. He was at the event. He actually was the photographer on display and connected us. I saw his work and I was just amazing photographer. I love the title of the presentation. Actually, you'll see why in a second if you haven't seen his work. Just Add Water. Amazing photographer, local photographer. And with that, I will let Kevin take over.
Hello. Can you guys hear me? Perfect. Perfect. Okay, cool. Well, first off, I want to say thank you for having me out here. I live in Ladera Ranch, and I didn't even know that this happened every month. So you guys have a very cool group here. I'm very impressed. My dad and I were just sitting in the back and kind of seeing all your work and seeing what you guys are doing, and I'm very impressed. The thing I'm very excited, I was just talking to Carlos about too. I think it's really cool you guys are doing a show at OC Camera. That's an awesome space. So I'm going to look up when you guys are there, and I'm going to come out and check it out. I think to get to see all your work there together is going to be really cool. It's an awesome space, and they do a nice job. So we had a good time when we did it, and it led to this. So the background, I mean, hopefully what I'm presenting today is of interest, or at least you know, some of it might be helpful, some of it might just be interesting, but we'll keep it pretty casual. If you guys have questions, just let me know, and hopefully you guys will get something out of it. But as Carlos said, I'm an in-water photographer, so which is exactly as it sounds. I basically I got into this at here. I actually have the thing. Actually, we'll do this. So yeah, so I got into this kind of on accident. I grew up surfing my whole life. I grew up in California, and I grew up surfing my whole life. You know, was never good enough to have it be any part of my career, but just loved it and loved being in the ocean and spent as much time in the ocean as I could. And then my new career, which is fine art photographer, is kind of a silver lining of the pandemic. So when the pandemic hit, the job I was doing before kind of dried up. And my dad had retired just a few years before, so I went to him at the beginning of the pandemic and I said, we're going to buy a camera and we're going to learn how to use it, and then we're going to take it in the water and we're going to start doing this for a living. And my dad's just as insane as I am, so he didn't stop me, and he was like, okay, let's do it. And I, you know, that probably for better or for worse, that's kind of what got us started. So, you know, I naively knew nothing about taking photos when I got started. I thought, like, looking back on it now, it's kind of comical, but at the time I was like, you know, I know where to be in the water. More importantly, I know where not to be in the water. And my you know, kind of naive attitude about it was like, how hard can taking photos be? Obviously, incredibly hard, much harder than knowing where to be in the water or knowing how to, you know. So we were humbled often at the beginning, and still I'm still humbled when I do it and trying to figure out what I'm doing at times. But kind of not knowing what I'm doing sometimes is kind of the best thing, and that's kind of like the best piece of it, is that fuels me to figure something out. It fuels me to keep trying something. It fuels me to admit that I don't know something and then try and figure it out so that I don't have to not know something anymore, if that makes sense. So I think us having no background, my dad especially, but me even less, I think really helped kind of at the beginning, is just embrace that attitude, you know, embrace the fact that, like, we needed to learn everything. I needed to learn from scratch, and I needed to learn it really, really fast, because this was kind of what we poured all of our resources and our time into. So yeah, so that was kind of the motivation behind it. When I grew up surfing, I'd see things in the ocean, I'd see things happen out there, and they're impossible to describe, and it was always something that for two reasons. I wanted to be able to bring that to land for people who do surf and maybe want that in their homes, but then I also wanted to bring it to land for people who don't surf and don't know kind of like what it looks like from you know, that perspective of being in the water. So but yeah, like I said, it started as a side project. It was going to be something that we kind of did as like a side hustle, and then within 12 months of starting, it became my full-time job and my dad's full-time job, and that's what we do now full-time. So to keep the business going now, we do a lot of art shows. We do about 20 to 25 art shows a year. We do galleries whenever they come up. And then for like 20% of our business, 15 to 20% of our business, we do some commercial stuff. We do real estate photography on the side too. So if any of you guys are interested in that, let me know and I can kind of give you our background on that too. But along the way, we've learned some things, so I'll kind of share those things and hopefully you guys get something from it. So when I'm shooting for art, when I'm doing this, when I'm actually in the water, we have to kind of think about on the before we even get in the water, kind of what we're trying to capture and then what we're ultimately using it for. We've learned a lot over the last 4.5 years about the printing process as well and how that plays a part in what I do on the front end. Is that, in order for us to make money doing this, we really have to keep in mind what the final product is going to be. So that's changed how I've shot. That's changed how I've, set the camera up to shoot. And it's changed kind of like my process in the water, because I have to kind of think about what is this ultimately going to be when I print something, or when I sell this product, what's it going to look like and how am I going to be able to present it? So when I shoot, if I'm shooting for art, I never go below 1/1,000. So immediately, as you all know, because I saw a lot of you guys are shooting like wildlife and birds, which are incredibly difficult to shoot. I think if you can shoot a bird, you can shoot almost anything, has been my experience. And that's like, I'm very impressed by any like when anybody can do that, it's really impressive because it's such a small window and it's such like a battle with light, which is exactly what we're doing. I'm just fighting light because I'm trying to come up with something that's extremely sharp on the production side of things. It's something that's tack sharp and very high in resolution. But then I'm also trying to, capture something that has color and light the way that we want to have it. So when I go out there, I'll take a step back actually. So my ISO, if I'm shooting for art, I try to never be above 500, which immediately makes it that I need enough light to do what I'm doing. And what I do when I go out in the water is I'll shoot for like 2 hours. My dad and I will go out to the beach and we'll shoot for like 2 hours. And the first hour is really just kind of like positioning myself, figuring out where I want to be for that day. What do I want to get now that I'm down there and I see what colors I have and where the sun is and what the clouds are doing and fog and wind and all that kind of stuff. And the first hour we shoot, we're just kind of like out there figuring out where to be so that when the light gets really good, that I'm ready to go, I've got my settings set up, and I'm ready to fire, and I'm not going to miss it. Because the worst thing that happens is if you get out there and all the things that are out of our control, like color and wind and light and waves and people in the background, things like that are out of our control, is that if we get one of those random times where it all lines up for an A+ shot, if I miss it because my settings aren't right, then like that's like something that I don't get over very easily. So my dad and I get really bummed out when that happens. So what I do when I go out there is I start kind of, I start around f8 and then I notch down as I lose light. And I always shoot either at sunrise or sunset. 75% of the time is sunset. I like the results better at sunset. It's also easier just with my lifestyle. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, so shooting at sunrise isn't really as easy as it sounds. But so when I go out there, I start at f8, and as every 10 to 15 minutes, I kind of notch down. Because my camera is in a housing, and I'll show you what it looks like here. This is what it's in when I'm shooting. So it's awesome because it keeps a very expensive camera dry, and I do have access, as you can see, to all the functions on the back through buttons and through the remote trigger. But I have to rely on autofocus, and I have to rely on auto ISO. So I'll cap the ISO at like 500, and that's the one piece that's moving. And then I shoot manual for aperture and shutter speed. But as I lose light, I'll notch down, and then I end at f2.8, and then that's kind of it for the night. Unless I want to do some like motion blur stuff, which we don't sell a lot of that stuff, so that's more just for me kind of having fun and goofing around. But there are certain things that, like, because the camera is in this housing, I have to rely on, technology in the camera. The camera and the lenses, obviously they can do incredible things, but these setups are by no means like intended to shoot water. Like in that photo alone, almost everything in that photo is moving. So if I'm relying on autofocus and I'm relying on the tech from the camera oftentimes is like freaking out and is like, what do you want me to focus on? You know what I mean? And I can't tell it because I'm also about to get smashed by a wave, and there's a lot of elements going on there. So over the years, I've gotten very good at kind of like how to trick the camera, how to figure out like, as the wave's coming, don't get it in focus too soon because I'm going to lose focus for the window of time that I want. It's kind of like let it focus, let it lose focus, and then as it gets time where the shot is where I want it, then I need to gain focus and really fire really quickly. So I always do center focus for the most part, unless I'm trying to do something like a little bit more artsy out there. And yeah, this housing, we used to shoot with Aquatech, which is a local company. But their gear is a little bit heavy, and when I shoot for 2 hours, like this is set up for a 200 millimeter lens. When I shoot for 2 hours, oftentimes we're just treading water. I can't touch. So a lot of times it's, you know, how long can I last out there? That's the other thing, that like if you get everything set up and you're ready to go, and then you don't get it because you're tired, that's a big bummer too. So there's a lot of elements and there's a lot of moving pieces that, you know, we have to kind of take into consideration. But go to the next one. Whoops. Oh, wait, did I go too far? Oh, yeah. So I shoot with Sony. I shoot with a Sony A7 R4. Again, that's mostly because when we produce stuff for either... Whoops, did I go too far? Oh, no, it's fine. When we produce stuff for galleries or art shows, oftentimes we're printing things that are, you know, 6, 7, 8 feet wide, and we need to have the resolution to be able to hold, you know, that sharpness. And I can go into a little bit about printing if you guys are interested in that. I can kind of talk to you about it. I can even let you guys know our main print shops that we work with. We've tested so many over the years, and we've kind of zeroed in on a few that we really like. But yeah, so I shoot with that camera mainly for the 61 megapixels so that you know, I can get really, really sharp results. It's not the fastest camera in the water, but that's kind of the sacrifice we have to make to be able to get what we're trying to get. I shoot mostly Sony lenses, and I'd say my 3 main go-to ones are for wide angle. So like when I'm shooting barrel shots, like when I'm trying to get in the water, I'm shooting wide angle. My favorite lens though is the 70 to 200. It's what goes into this one, and I'm able to kind of get back a little bit and like really focus on the texture of the water. My best results have been with that lens. I just love shooting with that one. And that one's the one where like when I'm shooting a barrel shot, like I'm kind of just like hanging in there like this and just trying not to get destroyed. Whereas like when I'm shooting something that's like more like that, then I'm able to actually look through the lens and actually like use the camera as the way it's intended to be used. And that's way more fun because I'm able to like really kind of hone in on like what I'm trying to shoot. So yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that's a great question. So some I'd say half the time I'm in chest high water and I can touch. So if I'm shooting shore break like that, that's a Liso Creek right there. So I'm in chest high water there. I'm shooting, so I shoot, and then as the wave comes, I duck under the wave and it goes right over the top of me. Ideally. If I'm in the wrong spot, then it's another story. But yeah, I'd say half the time I'm standing, half the time I'm treading water. So depending on where I'm shooting, you know, we'll shoot West Street Beach sometimes, and you can get cool texture stuff a little further out where I'll be actually treading water with fins and that kind of stuff. So it just depends on what we're actually looking for. So, but yeah, a lot of people think I'm on a surfboard. When we go to art shows, people are like, "Oh, you're on a surfboard. This is a GoPro." It's like, first of all, I wish I was that good of a surfer, and second of all, you know, compared to like what we're shooting with, it would not be possible to do it with a GoPro for sure. So. We shoot very high burst, so obviously, because we're trying to, like I said, when I'm shooting, I'm trying to get the window of when it's in focus to be when I actually want it. So if you looked at a sequence of shots, like for this shot specifically, there's probably 4 or 5 frames before it that are all out of focus, which I'm totally fine with, and then there's probably 4 or 5 frames after it that are all out of focus as well. One of them is probably me underwater, because I'll shoot until the wave actually goes. And I'm trying to nail that middle shot and trying to nail that middle exposure. Barrel shots are the easiest because it's just a matter of like, can I hang in there and take a beating? Whereas, like I said, when I'm shooting a 200 millimeter, when I'm looking through the lens, I can't see the wave coming at me. So if I'm looking through it and I can't tell when it's there, so I really have to rely kind of on the sound. And if I hear the wave breaking behind me, I know it's time to get out of Dodge. I got to go. I got to duck and I got to get out. Because if you get popped, like while you're looking through the lens and you get popped in the head with one of these, it can really, give you, it can really rock you pretty good. So yeah, so you kind of have to rely on all senses when you're doing some of it, because it's sometimes it's the ocean, so you never know, never know what's going to happen. And I'm humbled often, but oftentimes we'll go down there on big days and I'll get shaky before I go out, and I know that's a good sign, because it means that I'm not going to do something stupid, because I still have a very healthy fear of the ocean, even though I'm in it as much as I am. So. But yeah, so yeah, that's kind of what my be alert piece is. But I always shoot in raw. I'm sure that's probably a given. But we always shoot in raw for art. Again, just because when we blow these things up, we've done stuff as big as like 5 feet by 10 feet on acrylic face mounts, and you want to be able to have those like be exactly the same as if it's a 20 by 40, and that's been our experience. So yeah. So let's see. So some of our challenges. So yeah, like what I talked about. The sweet spot for lighting it's very interesting, because like we'll go out there, we'll be out there for 2 hours, and the spot where I'm really going to hit an A+ shot is probably 10 to 15 minutes. So you try to line everything up, try to line the settings up, try to be in the right spot. Hopefully there's nobody surfing. Hopefully everything's good. And then you're really trying to, and then like you're sitting there and you're like, okay, this is it. The light's perfect. Everything's good. Where's the wave? Where's the whatever it is I'm trying to shoot? And it's just like, you're kind of out of control in that situation, and you're hoping for the best. When we shoot for like 2 hours. I shoot probably 1,500 to 2,000 shots. If we keep one, we're really psyched. So it's usually like every 2 or 3 shot times out, we'll get a shot that we keep and push through to production. I would say only 10% of those are what we consider A+ shots. My dad and I, we've been doing this for 5 years, and I'd say we probably have like 3 dozen shots that we would consider like A or A+ shots that I'm like these will be in our collection forever. I mean, obviously all of them will be in our collection, but as far as like ones that we will really push at galleries and art shows, so we get, if I'm lucky, I'll get maybe 10 a year of those. Assuming we shoot as much as we should be shooting. So another question we always get is, how do we shoot without water drops? Because on the front of this, you'll see, is just a piece of acrylic. So I shoot a method called dry port, which really increases the hit rate of what's in focus, but it's also incredibly difficult to do in the water, because you're trying to keep the front of the lens dry. So before I go out, I actually take really, really soft surf wax, and I buff it into the lens port really, really fine so you can't see it, so that ideally when I come up out of the water will bead off the front and I'm shooting through a dry lens. That'll last for about an hour and a half before I have to like reapply it. So when I'm out there, the hardest piece in between waves is to try and tread water with this facing upwards, so that it's not getting wet before I'm shooting. So I'm kind of like treading water like this, wave comes, then I'm shooting, and then getting rocked, and then you come back up and do it again. So we kind of learned that along the way, and our hit rate went up, probably doubled, because before that we were trying to get a very even film of water on the front of it. And that's really tough, because like even just like the smallest grain of sand or a piece of seaweed is going to kind of throw off like the focal piece of it. So it's, we've done much better with that. It's a lot more work, but we've done a lot better. We've been happy with the results. So the other piece too is like when I started out, as I told you, like when I was starting out, very naive to like I'm impressed by anybody that has done this for years, because like I learned so much every day doing this, but I didn't know what I didn't know when I got started. And I used to kind of go out and just kind of like spray and pray. Like I would be like, I'm going to shoot everything, and I'm just going to, like, it probably looked like a goof out there. But what I've learned, and what we've learned through the printing process as well, is like have a very set idea of what you're trying to capture before you capture it. So don't go out there and just kind of like even for us, like if I'm in the water, looking south versus looking north is going to give me an entirely different set of camera settings. So at the beginning, I would shoot this way, and then I'd turn and shoot this way, and then and it'd be like, what is going on? And so, half the stuff would be out of focus and it would be like not the correct setting. So now it's, when I'm down there, it's what am I trying to get today? I know if I can keep just one or two of these, that's going to be a massive success. So let's figure out what that is. Let's do that now, and let's do it not on the production side, where before I would like crop in on something and do all these crazy things. Now it's like, no, let's focus on that on the front end so that I know exactly what I'm trying to get. And we've had a lot more success with that too. So even just choosing the right lens, choosing the right settings, and choosing the right direction to look based on light and all that kind of stuff. So knowing what I'm trying to get before I go out has been a big help and a big piece of it. So also too, getting really good at finding, and this kind of goes to other types of photography as well. I mean, you guys were just talking about some of the parks and stuff like that, is learning the best place to shoot, learning where to go where there aren't people, where there aren't distractions. I would shoot, I think I have a picture of it later, one of the ones, but I would shoot the wedge every day if I could, because the waves are super big and they're hollow and they're always really good. But if there's good waves there's going to be 400 people in the water, And I don't do Photoshop at all. I do Lightroom, obviously, but I will not airbrush somebody out. We won't change color. We won't do things like that. We try to keep it as natural as we can. So if I shoot a shot like that and there's a surfer in the background, I might sell it to them, but I won't use it for art. You know what I mean? I won't do anything like that. I won't brush them out. So, yeah. Yeah. So I'm the photographer. I'm the one that is in the water doing that. Yeah. But my dad is a massive piece of the business. I would not be able to do any of the art side of the business without him. So my dad helps me at all of the shows. So we set up, like I said, we do 20 to 25 shows a year, and he's helping me install and set up for all of those gallery shows, outdoor art shows, things like that. Anything we sell, he's actually delivering and installing if they're in Southern California. For example, tomorrow he's installing 10 prints up in Brentwood from a show. We sold 10 prints back in February, and he's got to go install them. So he does all that stuff. He comes with me to the shoots to make sure I don't die. Although we joke around a lot that if I drifted off, there wouldn't be much he could do about it. He'd just be able to point like the last place he saw me. But yeah. So. Yeah, we have more insurance on the gear than we have on me, I think. But yeah, so he's I wouldn't be able to do any of it just because it's, I mean, the art shows alone, and I have a slide at the end. I don't know how interested any of you guys are in getting into that world, or I'm sure some of you have already done a lot of it. That's probably where we've learned the most, is just that piece of the business is like, we got into it and we're like, how hard can it be? You bring your stuff somewhere, you set it up, and you sell it. It's like, holy cow, the stuff that goes into like the art show world is just insane. And we've learned a lot about that, and I wouldn't even want to do it by myself, but I wouldn't be able to anyway. You know what I mean? So I'm very fortunate that he didn't say no. I don't know that I really give him I don't think I really give you a chance, but to say no. But like I said, yeah, our A+ shots are few and far between. So we're happy if I can get 10 to 12 shots a year. Like, we're pretty pumped that we consider, shots that we know are gonna produce. So, oh yeah, another question. Fortunately, I've only lost one to water damage so far. So I do have it's actually kind of funny. The insurance we have on it is dive insurance. So if any of you guys are ever interested in shooting in the water, I can pass that info along. It's the same insurance that we'd have if we were doing underwater stuff. But yeah, one time I went out there, one of the gaskets on this failed, and I was out there for maybe 5 minutes, and I looked down and I saw bubbles inside the screen, and I was like, that. So we toasted like a $6,000 setup. It was the camera body, the lens, and then we had to repair the housing too. Fortunately, like I said, with the insurance, we were kind of only out like 10% of that. But I really don't understand how the insurance works. I don't know how they keep insuring us, even after one failure like that. But so far, we're still good. So yeah, we've fired through that, and then we have, because anytime we get commissioned to shoot something, we have a couple different bodies now in case that does happen again. But yeah, we've only lost one. So now I bring it to shows and show people what ocean water does to a camera. It's kind of fascinating, but. It did not. No. Fortunately, that was just an art shoot. I wasn't commissioned on that one, so it was just me that got hurt by that one. Yeah. If I'm treading water, for sure. Yeah, yeah. And those ones are much tougher because if I find myself in the wrong spot, I'm gonna take a beating out there. Oh yeah, oh yeah. So yeah, when I'm shooting shore break, at least half the time I'm probably going the wrong way because especially like if I'm doing the barrel stuff where I'm trying to be in there, I'm trying to get perspectives that are like up and high on the face of the wave. It's worth it if you get it. Obviously, if you don't, then it's not as much fun. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I mean, like I said, I grew up surfing, so taking a beating in the ocean is kind of like it is oddly fun for me. So I don't. It doesn't. It doesn't bother me too much. There's only been a handful of times where I'm like, oh, yes, I'm in the wrong spot, and this is a problem. You know what I mean? But yeah. I should. I don't. I probably should. Part of the reason why is because, like I said, a lot of times I'm trying to rely on sound. So because I really should wear earplugs too because of the cold water and stuff, but I don't because I'm trying to listen and trying to hear out there. So my senses kind of being off from having something cover or be in my ear would kind of set me off. I should though. I probably should. Because the worst thing you can do is get hit by your own housing. If it gets blown out of your hand, and that does happen. Where like that's why you can see I have a strap on it. But if it gets blown out of your hand and then it's just kind of like this big chunk of metal that's swinging around you and you don't really know where it is, so it is difficult. Yeah. So I'm color correcting in Lightroom. Yeah, I'll get into some of the editing too, but I don't use Photoshop. So I just everything is Lightroom Classic. Obviously, I'm definitely playing with like saturation levels, highlights, a little bit of clarity. I won't do too much. Like I'll do saturation lifts on certain colors, but I really won't take something that's like green and then make it blue. I'll try to keep it as natural as I can in terms of color. But yes, no, absolutely, we're pushing things pretty far in Lightroom, and that was kind of something that I had to learn along the way too. Is like when I started out, I was like Lightroom was like this magic wand, and I'd be like, I'm gonna just go crazy, and then you kind of like get your stuff. That's where art shows are good. Is that you get this direct feedback of if I think something's great and I bring it to a show and it sits there for 4 shows, then it's like that. Not only is that not great, but like we need to get rid of that. Like that's not something, because and it's hard because like I love the art piece of the business. I don't like the selling of it. But it is like my dad and I are realists too that like in order to keep doing this, we do have to sell. So like I do have to make decisions sometimes that like I don't want to make because I'm trying to sell it. Like I have to make it a little bit more commercial or a little bit more accessible, But yeah, go ahead. So it doesn't degrade the image at all. Over time, it'll definitely degrade the acrylic. So we fly through acrylic pieces quite a bit. Like I can use a piece of acrylic probably 5 or 6 times. Fortunately, that's not super expensive. They're like $30. But when we're selling a piece, if I can get it tack sharp, then we're obviously going to make that back. But yeah, it doesn't degrade the image at all. You can't really tell. It's just over time. And this one's actually an old one. So if you guys want to look after, you'll see you can see some marks on it now. So. Yeah. Yeah. So I shoot Sony A7R4. It's been the camera I've used pretty much the whole time. We've bounced around. I've shot Sony from the beginning. I feel like once I'm sure people in here that shoot Sony, once you learn the menu, then it's like learning another language, and now I can't really ever shoot anything else. Also, our most expensive piece of equipment is the housing. So like now we have everything custom cut to what our gear is. It's like incredibly expensive to try and switch or to try and go to something else, another setup. Someday I might try and shoot with something a little bit more high in megapixels, but it'll just depend on kind of what's available at that time and then if we can afford it and those types of things. So most of our money now is going towards art shows and production and stuff like that. So we try to keep our expenses on the gear side as low. Every year we'll kind of have like one expense that we go into. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I was that was at the Wedge, and it was like not a very big day at the Wedge. So I thought before I went out, I was like, I don't think I need this strap. I think I'm fine. But the wedge is like a different beast, and the wedge will humble you 7 times to Sunday. So I got pounded. I was in the wrong spot. It got blown out of my hand, and we have insurance on everything, but we don't have insurance if you lose it. So like if I don't have so that would have been a real big problem. And fortunately, I kind of came up from the wave. I was in full panic mode, and it was like 100 feet down the beach, kind of like in the shore break. So I sprinted down there and dove on it, and I was able to find it. But it was, yeah, it was a little serious. Whereas my dad have been there, he could have just been like, I think you're looking for this. So, but yeah. And now, even on the smallest of days, if it's a 6-inch wave, I will still wear this. That's the lesson learned from that one. So, and honestly, that's the thing. That the size of the wave, a lot of times people are like, oh, you must shoot. It's like, yeah, we love shooting big waves, but some of the most fun I have are shooting much smaller waves where it's focusing on texture. For example, this wave, this is probably 1 foot at best. And I'm shooting that with a 200 millimeter lens. I'm further down, and I'm kind of like to the back side of it. This is at Crescent Bay in Laguna Beach. And this is one of my favorite shots just because of like the detail that I got from it and just how much harder it is to shoot with 200 millimeter than a wide angle. And I love shooting small stuff. So a lot of what I'm talking about today, I'm sure there's a lot of people in here that are like, I'm never going in the water with my camera, and I don't blame you. But you can do a lot of what I'm talking about just from like being right there where the waves are breaking, and especially if you have a little bit of a longer lens, you could snag that from the beach easily. You know what I mean? And it can be really I don't know if anybody will be as obsessed about it as I am, but just the cool thing about it is a lot of times we go down there and the waves, the conditions aren't that impressive. And that's the way, like, everybody's gone to the beach. You've gone down to the beach, and it's been like, yeah, it's just whatever waves, you know? But then when you freeze it and you get a chance to study it, and you see, like, these things are happening trillions of times a second everywhere. Like, everything in that photo is moving, which is really, like, just a cool piece that you can freeze that and give that to somebody to say, you know, you can really study it and take a look at it. And every time you look at it, you see something different, and people see stuff in it, and it's, like, it's really cool. So... go to so editing. So like I was talking about, I don't do Photoshop. My best tip for editing is whatever your niche is, whatever you like shooting, just edit thousands of them. Edit thousands of them, even if you don't keep them, even if you just delete them. Edit the same photo 20 times, see if it comes out the same way each time. You know, I do that a lot. I'll edit something, save it, go back to start, edit it again, save it, and see like how close I got each time to like what it is. And then your style and your kind of like what you like will find you, and you'll be able to, you know, kind of start doing things just your own way. Because there's a lot of guys and girls that do what we do. There's a lot of ocean photographers, especially if you go across the world. There's tons everywhere, and we had to kind of find like our own niche and find our own piece of that, you know, of that world that helps us stand out. You know what I mean? So I did that just by kind of being relentless about how much I edit and how and kind of finding what style I like. But we do a lot of saturation and a lot of vibrance just because of our topic. Water is really easy to push saturation, much more than anything like on land or even when we do the real estate stuff, like, you know, but with water, you can really kind of like, for us, that's what we found is like we can push it and we can really kind of enhance things just naturally by kind of giving it more a rich, you know, color to it. We try to do like clarity and texture, not too much because you don't want it to look fake or too contrasty, but we definitely edit things. We edit pieces. I mean, you guys probably spend hours in Lightroom too, so you guys know all this stuff. But we try to, you know, we really, like I said, we try to keep it natural, but obviously enhance what's already there. So we're just trying to like lighten things up and try and brighten things up as best as we can. Like I said, we don't change color, but if that's a style you're going for, obviously it's you know, something you can do. When you're pushing saturation, definitely look out for color banding, especially if you're going to print. That's where we get kind of, that's where our editing process has been changed over time, is as we print things, the way that those things interact with whatever we're printing on, whether that be paper, whether that be metal, wood, canvas, whatever we're printing on, each image is going to interact differently. And if you push saturation too high, you're going to get color banding. I'm sure you guys have seen that in skies and in water and things like that. So we do have to be careful with that kind of stuff. But and then the presentation that you put on, having a great organizational system in Lightroom is probably the best piece of our business, because like I said, I'll shoot 2,000 shots. I have to know where all of them are going, and when I cull those photos, like I need to be able to kind of like be able to go through it really quickly. So have a good system and then stick to it, and that, I'm sure you all know that anyway. But so yeah, so I don't know how much of interest this is, but the art show business is like really a crazy world. Oh, that's actually this is the shoot that we were just talking about. That's the wedge shot. It was not long after that the camera was blown out of my hands. So, so not a particularly huge wedge day, but that was a crazy day though too, because that was in the winter. So normally there would be a row of houses there in the sand, but they bermed up the sand to protect the beach. So I was able to kind of get this shot of the wedge that looks like I'm in like some remote location, which is kind of cool. But if the art show business is something that anybody in this room is trying to get into, just to give you a quick, I won't go too much into this, but just a quick background on us is the jury system is freaking tough. It's tough, like, because that's how most of the shows we do are done. You submit stuff to some nameless entity, and then you hear back, yes, you're in, no, you're not. And even to this day, we've done, my dad and I have done over 200 shows now over the last 4 years. I honestly, we still get rejected, and we still get waitlisted. We still don't know why, and it is like it's a tough thing when you're putting your art out there and you're putting like your work out there. And it's funny to me too, because a lot of communities, especially in Orange County and Southern California, are like, we support the arts, we push the arts, we do this, and then it's like, send us your work. No, you're not in. You know what I mean? And that's tough. That's a tough pill to swallow, especially when you're trying to run a business and you're trying to put your stuff out there. But it's just, I finally kind of, and I have to remind myself about this all the time, it's like, it has nothing to do with us, it has nothing to do with our work. It could come down to just somebody, you know, especially if you're doing shows that are not just photography. Sometimes you do stuff and it's like they're just not, they don't like photography. If you're just doing like random art shows, like we do the Beverly Hills Art Show, and we're like definitely a unique entity at that show. It's a lot of painting, it's a lot of this, you know. Unfortunately, we've been in that show a couple times, but you know, we've gotten waitlisted at that show again, and it could just come down to like people just, you know, being a new technology, or being like, you know, a lot of times we'll go to shows and people don't see photography as art the way that they should, or the way that I think they should, and then, you know, that's reflected in that piece of it. What were you gonna say, Carlos? Yeah, so most of our shows are in California somewhere. This is the first year where we're going to kind of branch out. We went back and shot in the Great Lakes, and we're going to do some shows in Chicago, I think, later this year, and we're going to start to branch out and go more national. But most of them are California. You can keep yourself pretty busy if you spread your kind of map from Santa Barbara to San Diego. There's enough shows, or at least we've found so far, to keep yourself kind of pretty busy from April to November. That's kind of the sweet spot of the season. Yeah, it's a lot of coastal cities. Yeah, it's mostly San Diego, LA, you know, Orange County up to Santa Barbara. But the art show business is good, like I said, because you do get that immediate feedback, though. Like, you're able to kind of, like, something that you might love, you'll put out there and you'll find it's just you that loves it. We've also had the opposite, where we've put out stuff and my dad's like, let's print this. And I'm like, no, I don't want to print that. I don't want to print it. And then we print it, and it becomes like a very big seller for us. So like, what I've learned through the art show business is that, like, what I think is going to work is not at all what's going to work. So we do kind of have a hunt and peck method of, when we get new stuff, we put it out there, we give it a chance, we'll give it a couple of shows. If it performs, we'll keep it. If it doesn't, then it's out to pasture with it. So that's kind of how we've learned. But it's, you know, the cool thing about it, not to be all negative about art shows, but one of the very cool pieces of art shows is how many people you meet, and just how excited they are to talk to you about your work and their experience with whatever it is you're shooting. we feel extremely fortunate to be able to do what we do and to talk to as many people as we do. And, you know, if somebody, what we're selling is not cheap. We sell stuff and it is expensive. So if somebody's going to buy something from us, we kind of feel an obligation to match that energy, give them a story, tell them what it is, tell them how we got into it, kind of have this conversation with them so that it's like a positive experience and that we have fun with it. We go to so many shows and we've met so many artists, and for lack of better terms, they're just kind of grumpy, and we just like don't get it. It's like we're not office job workers. I'm so lucky to do this and so lucky to do it with my dad, and it's like we've kind of made a pact with each other that if we ever go to an art show and we're grumpy, then we're done. Like we're out. We can't do this anymore if we're doing that. So we try to match the energy of everybody that we meet. And you're going to get tons of people if you do shows that are coming up and they're going to show you stuff on their phone and they're like, I did this too. And it's like, yeah, it's awesome. You get to kind of like, you see so many different people and you find out how many people are interested in whatever it is you're interested in. The amount of people that are just interested in us and waves and want that in their home is like been way more than we expected. You know what I mean? And that'll be the case with whatever your niche is, you know? So, the art shows aren't cheap. So if you can do but there are some that are where you can get the feedback and see if it's something that you're really into and if you really want to do it. There's some that are local that are really great and aren't that expensive. There's a couple in Orange County that really aren't too bad, and it gives you an opportunity to get that feel of what that's like, what it's like to sit there for 8 hours and defend your work, kind of, you know what I mean? What it's like to go through a full, you know, because, you know, by the end of the day, it's a 12-hour day. You got to get there, you got to set up, you got to sell it, and you got to take it down, you know, so it can be exhausting, and it's a good way to kind of see if that's something that you like to do. Pricing is really difficult to figure out. Where to sell stuff, how to sell it, you know, kind of how much can you charge? The first couple prints we sold 4 or 5 years ago, I felt bad. I felt like I can't believe somebody's paying this for this. And then you kind of learn along the way and you push it and you try to find a place where you're selling enough to stay in business, but you're also valuing what you do. Like whatever your niche is, the amount of skill and technical ability, just from what I saw on the screen alone from before this, you guys all have an incredible, or at least the people I saw have an incredible talent, is to value that talent and don't budge. You know what I mean? Some people, we'll get people all the time and they'll come up and tell us how we're overpriced and it's too much and it's too this, and that's fine. And you just politely say, you might be right. And that's it, you know, and you just don't sell to that person. But you have to value your stuff. If you're going to do art shows, you definitely have to value your stuff and value kind of what you do, because it's not easy. I can tell you, like I said, doing this and doing any kind of photography is incredibly difficult. So I think it's good to remember that when you're kind of doing it. But social media and website, social media is kind of a necessary evil of the business. I don't really push it too much. I don't like it. It's not my favorite thing. But just to do enough of it to kind of establish credibility, to have a portfolio out there that people can access easily, it is good for that kind of stuff. Don't ever rely on it to sell stuff. I think over the 5 years we've sold maybe like 4 prints on Instagram. So it's not like you're not going to make money from social media, but it is something to like to be interactive and to just kind of like have that credibility. But yeah, but that's kind of it. So I, you know, like I said, my dad and I we feel very fortunate to be able to do this, to be able to come do something like this tonight, to be able to kind of, you know, share our work with as many people as we can. And, you know, whatever you guys are trying to get out of your photography journey, I know that sounds cliche, is just be relentless, just do it and have fun with it. And if you're not having fun with it, then it's probably, that's like we said, it's probably over. You know what I mean? It's just have fun and just go after it full speed. So, but I'm happy to take questions or comments or anything. Yeah. So far we've shot kind of all up and down California. We went up to the Bay Area and shot over the summer. I shoot regularly from Santa Barbara down to San Diego. Like I said, we went and shot in the Great Lakes for a couple weeks, so we got a lot of stuff in and around Chicago and Michigan and stuff like that. As far as in the water, that's really been it so far. Again, it's kind of like we try to keep most of our money and most of our spend on the field, so to speak, in the sense that like any revenue we make is either paying my salary, his salary, or it's going right back into the business. So travel, unfortunately, hasn't been as like big of a piece as we'd like it to be. There's also the piece of, you know, the reason we went and shot the Great Lakes. A lot of people are like, oh, you got to go shoot Hawaii. Well, there's 4,000 people in Hawaii doing this. You know what I mean? There's probably 2 in Lake Michigan. You know what I mean? So it's like being strategic about where we go. If we can generate results like this in Lake Michigan, there's going to be a massive market in Chicago, and they have big art shows back there. There's good shows in Michigan, and there's good shows in Chicago. So that's kind of like what we're doing, is trying to be smart about where we go. So yeah. That's a good question. So I only know the difference because when I got started and didn't know what I was doing, I used the newer version of it. I'm sure somebody in here probably even knows better than I do. My understanding is that Lightroom Classic, or I think the newer version was more set up for like on the go and to be more of a mobile use app, whereas the original version has some features that the newer version doesn't have, and it's more set up for like a desktop use, and it's more set up for cataloging. I could be completely wrong with that. I've just found the most success and the most accessibility to tools that I need are on the classic version. So that's, and now that, and it's one of those things where it's like I started doing it this way, so now this is the way we're doing it. Same thing with like the kind of camera we shoot with. You know what I mean? I'm dug in now. I've got my catalog is all in Lightroom Classic, and my backups and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. Yeah, so I forgot I was going to say, no, we don't. We rely solely, someday maybe would be nice, but when we got into it, I'll have my dad hold this up. This is one of our prints. This is a small one, but it was what I could fit in. So no, when we got into it, we relied solely on third-party vendors for all of our printing. We've never printed our own piece of anything. So we've tried about 20 of them, and depending on what we're printing on, we've landed on a few that are kind of our go-to. What my dad just held up is an acrylic face mount, so that's printed on really high-end paper and then pressed underneath a piece of acrylic. We also print on metal. It's not my favorite because it does alter color and resolution a little bit. It's really hard to get accurate color on metal. Because when you print on metal, you're actually printing on the piece of metal, whereas this, we're printing on paper. And my experience has been, in terms of color range and resolution, nothing beats printing on really, really good paper. That's going to be the best thing 9 times out of 10. So that's why whenever we do gallery shows where we have proper lighting, we're always doing them under acrylic. But we also do just framed prints. We print on canvas, we print on wood. It's kind of what look you're going for. The highest resolution is going to be something on acrylic, though. Yeah. Of what we sell? Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's actually right. Well, so that's the interesting. So you brought up one thing that drives my dad nuts. I see him perking up over there. So 50% of the time, I'd say people want something like this, where it could be literally anywhere. The other 50%, people like stuff in the background for context. They want trees, they want buildings, they want beach, they want something. So we kind of do both. The main thing, the common denominator of what we sell is really really high resolution. People love tax. They don't get it because you guys are all photographers in this room, so you get it. You get that this is possible. If you go to an art show, whatever you're bringing, they have no idea that this is even possible. If you guys are like, take birds for example. If you're they don't know that you can get a picture of a bird like that and then print it on metal or print it on acrylic, and that it's even possible. They just don't know. It's not in their normal purview of what they do. So you guys being in this room, like, you almost know too much to know that, like, hey, I might have something in my portfolio that people really want and are going to pay a lot of money for. So 50% of the time they want stuff like this. My dad he loses his mind because people will come up and they'll spend 20 minutes looking at this picture and they'll be like, "This is amazing. I have to have this. This is great. This is great. This is great." And we'll be at a show in LA, and then they'll be like, "Where is it?" And my dad will be like, "Oh, it's Carlsbad. This one happens to be Carlsbad." And they'll be like, "Oh man, if this was just Venice Beach," and it's like, and my dad like loses his mind, Yeah. Yeah, that's what he always says. So we've had this. I've had this conversation with my dad at art shows probably 24 times of what the ethics are of saying that is from wherever we happen to be, and to our credit, we've never lied. We've always been honest about it. But my dad and he's always like, well, let's just say it's wherever. This week it's from Malibu. They're not going to care, whatever. But and Malibu's really difficult to shoot. Well, now it's impossible to shoot, but it's really difficult. Yeah. So, but yeah, we always get that. Where's it from? I want it to be from here, and it's like, well, what does it matter? But yeah, just good color. Good color. Strangely enough, like going into the interior design of it, neutral colors. Some of my best shots are sunset shots that are like really gold, and those do fantastic for juries. You get into shows with those shots, but you don't sell them because we do some black and white, not a ton. Because our subject is just so rich in color anyway. But for use your technically sharp ones to get into shows with juries and stuff like that. The gold images that we have, we don't sell a lot of because not a lot of people want that in their family room. Whereas something more neutral like this, blue and white, and more neutral colors. So yeah. Good question. So the two most common sizes are 36 by 72 and 30 by 60 for what we do. So those go very well over like a king size bed or a couch. So because of what we're shooting and because of the resolution, like I said, that's kind of what people want the most of. The most common thing is for people to get as much as their budget can buy in terms of size. They want big stuff. And when you see this stuff much bigger, it's so much more impressive. And it's so much more fun because like you can get some of these things to be really big, and then they're so much more impactful. So that's a great question. So metal prints, we try to be around $1 a square inch. So a 30 by 60 print would be $1,800. Depending on kind of what show it is, our acrylic prints we're trying to be. I don't know. We're always moving the acrylic price. It's hard. It depends. Yeah, acrylic. It's not. It's more expensive. Acrylic is more expensive than metal, just because it costs a lot more to make. Yeah, metal's the most cost effective in terms of like size and bang for your buck. We can frame them, but we typically don't, because when they're on metal and something like this, they're going to float off the wall about an inch, and it gives it a really, just again because of our subject matter, it gives it a really cool look. It's kind of like more of a contemporary, like impactful look. Yeah. Yes. So our main print house or print shop for acrylic is based out of San Diego. They're called Impact Visual Arts. Great guys, great team. They print photo paper prints too. There's not just acrylic. They do all sorts of stuff. But that's where we get our acrylics done, and we really like them. They're great. We've worked with them for probably 3 or 4 years now. So great shop. Yeah. 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 Yeah, we see wildlife all the time. Fortunately, we get like seals and sea lions and things like that will come check us out all the time. Kind of like come pop up and like look and like what is that, and then they'll take off. I'll see dolphins a lot. Fortunately, the only times I've ever seen sharks is when I've been surfing, and it'll be you kind of see like you're always looking if it's doing this, if the fin's going up and down, you're good. If it's doing this, you're not, and it's just kind of like that's the end of that. But I've only seen that twice, and that fortunately has been when I've been surfing, and I've been able to get out of there pretty quick. But yeah, yeah, yeah. He's the pioneer. He's the man. Yeah, Clark Little's a beast. He's been doing this for 20 plus years. He's an animal. He's based in Hawaii, and I feel like he's more into the thrill of just getting pounded because he'll shoot like a 20-foot wave in like 3 inches of water, and he's insane. He's a nut. But yeah, he's kind of the first guy. He kind of paved the way to do this, showed people that this is something you can do, and fortunately, we've kind of taken that and made it into our own and done it that way. So yeah. Oh, yeah. We will be at the Festival of Arts. We'll be at the one that's linked with the Pageant of the Masters. Yeah, actually, if any of you guys, at some point in June, they'll send us our package, and I get a good amount of free tickets to the art portion of that. So if anybody wants to reach out to me, as long as I have them, I'm happy to share them. I'll send you guys. I think it's like $10 or $15, but it saves a little, and I'd be happy to have any of you guys come out. But yeah, we'll be at the Festival of Arts starting the 4th of July weekend. Through Labor Day. It'll be our 3rd year at that show, so we do love that one. It's every day, so that one's a bear as far as like our involvement. But yeah, we would love. It's a great show, and I think this year there's probably like 20 or 21 photographers in it. I think when I looked at the list, so and they're amazing. They're really cool work there. So yeah, come out, shoot me a message. And I didn't put it on here, but you can find me online. My website's just KevinAveryPhotography.com. Or you can go to Instagram and shoot me a message. And yeah, I'll get those tickets in June. If anybody wants to come out, just shoot me a message. I'd be happy to share it. So thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.